Hey bestie, it's time for your next session of Real Talk Friend Therapy with your favorite big sister auntie queen, Daysha Veronica. What up, y'all? Oh my God, it has been a hot minute. It's nuts. So I have written the intro to this episode twice now. And because the state of the world has been so ridiculous, I can't believe I'm having to scrap it again. I also can't believe that it's only been, I don't know, it's literally, I feel like it's only been like 3 weeks. And not only has the world just like politically been like shooken up in ways that nobody could have saw. Like it was on no one's 2024 bingo card, but also in my personal life has just been the same way. Like a fucking earthquake came through. As you can hear from my voice, I am recovering from having COVID for the first time. So I thought I was a new breed of human, let me tell you. And I guess this is how I got humbled, because I really did think I was a new breed of human, because for the past 4 years, I've never had COVID, or I'd never tested positive for it, ever. I even caught the flu before I caught COVID, okay? Like, that's how special I thought I was. And yeah, COVID got me, and it got me good. So, I mean, this new variant, whatever it is nothing to fuck with, because I went 4 years ducking and dodging COVID. Like, I'm still shocked. I still can't believe that it got me. But I will also say that I'm surprised that, like, you know, I have no political stance on masks. I just think that I am willing to do whatever I need to do to not be sick, because even before the pandemic, your girl hated being sick. I despised being sick. And so I'm also just like, wow, like, I can't believe that these masks really protected me for the last 3 to 4 years. You know what I'm saying? Like, because I got the flu in 2023. So from 2020 to 2023, I had not been sick whatsoever. So I can't say I love masks, but at the same time, like, they do what they supposed to do, okay? So you ain't about to catch me in a crowded indoor place without a mask after this immunity wears off. Absolutely not. Oh my God, I never want this again. But yeah, so I had COVID, and I apologize for the delay, as well as like the lack of communication. I had always planned for July, August to be the time that I was going to do our mid-season break, but I knew that I still had a few more episodes I wanted to get out, and so I just find it funny that the universe was like, nah girl, you gonna take this break. But the other reason for the delay of the season is that right before I got COVID, I was laid off from my job. And, you know, to be honest, I'm actually okay with it. Like, it was definitely a shock and unexpected when it happened. But then when I recounted some things, I was like, So that's why my former fake heifer of a manager was being so corporate to me, calling out everything I was doing wrong. Because anyone who knows this person knows that, like, she's like the most unserious person to ever manage someone. And that's me being real nice right now. That is me finding God after COVID, okay? Because before it happened, I was like, why is she being so fucking aggressive towards me recently? Like, is this just how she be in the summer? Because she was hella aggressive towards me last summer. So my partner and my besties, we would joke. We were like, is this just her summertime, like, saltiness era right now? Like, is this just what the summers will bring with her? I don't want to get too into the weeds on what happened or what I think happened right now. Trust me, there will be a time for that tea. But yeah, it was definitely a shock. But, you know, I've also been telling my besties and my therapist that it's been really revealing of how much I've grown as a person. Like, yeah, I was shocked, and a bitch, I was hella angry. But let me also tell you that a bitch was hella focused, okay? Like, I was literally singing to myself, don't be mad, ho. Get that bag, ho. Because they tried to play me with my severance. And even though I was contracted to work for the rest of the year, I said, baby girl, I'm not the one. I didn't get all that I asked for, but I definitely got more than what they offered, which, lesson number 1, besties, never ever take the first offer. Anything you are offered, always ask for more, whether it's a corporation or your divorce. Do not let these Do not let these fools play in your face, because they will. The other thing it reminded me of was when I was first meeting with my therapist and I was going home for a family gathering, and my mom forgot to tell me that the person who attacked me was going to be there until the flights were booked, and I was so fucking mad. And I was venting to my therapist that I hate that I constantly have to remind her that I don't want to be around this person. And just to add in for context, because I don't want you guys to think that my mom does this to be an asshole, she does work nights, and so she can be forgetful. It's hard because I'm like, I want to respect the fact that she's a human being that's not perfect, while also being frustrated at the fact that I'm like, but this is still like very serious to me. But yeah, so I just want to throw that in there, that my mom doesn't do it to be an asshole. She just genuinely forgets. And my therapist, who's a real one, was like, as women of color, our life is always going to be one of advocacy. We're always going to have to be the one to stand up for ourselves. Society is not going to do that for us, but like, especially you as a Black woman. And I hated that reality in that moment. I really did. But now, jumping forward years later, I'm still not in love with that reality, but I can see how it's benefited me to be my fiercest and loudest advocate. I live a much more content life because of it. And while I might not get to be the softest girl on the block because of it, I am a very satisfied girly, because people know that I'm not the one. And then if they don't, they find out real quick and then they come correct. So yeah, I just wanted to apologize for being delayed and kind of like not being great at communication. This is kind of like a really great segue into our conversation topic today, which is going to be all about boundaries. I think that for me personally, social media has always been this place that I have tried to figure out what are my boundaries, how do I best protect myself, my mental health, but also, you know, connect with my community, because y'all be out there and y'all have so much love for me. And I just want y'all to know that I don't, my lack of presence is not lack of love, or that like I take y'all for granted. Oh my God, like when you guys write me things, like I literally like hold them so close to my heart. And like whenever I'm feeling down, or like I just, you know, I'm not getting the numbers that I want, I go back and I read them. So I just want y'all to know I got so much love for y'all. I think that part of my unbalanced presence on social media sometimes is just because I'm personally trying to figure out how to have healthy boundaries. Because, you know, when I was in the thick of it in my BuzzFeed days, like, you know, we're human. We are people. And words in particular can do a lot of damage for me. And so, yeah, I'm working on my boundaries. So yeah, all this is to say that this week's conversation is about boundaries. What are they, and how can we get clear about naming our own? How can we communicate them effectively to our friends and our loved ones? And then how do we go about enforcing boundaries and dealing with the inevitable boundary crossers? The people who either struggle with respecting our boundaries or just ignore them altogether. Do we give them second chances? Do we cut them out of our lives altogether? All of this and more will be discussed. Now, because y'all know I like to be real thorough in how I explore topics, I knew that I couldn't distill all of this information into one episode or just do it on my own. So we'll be having this conversation about boundaries over the course of the next 3 episodes, including this one. So this one and then 2 others. The first episode will be with me, and we'll be going over what boundaries are and how to discover our own. And then for our next 2 episodes, I am so excited to introduce y'all to my girl, Calix Vubui, who is a licensed therapist and my favorite Real Talk queen. She is a fellow fire sign, so you know she's going to bring 110% realness to our conversation on boundaries. And, you know, to be real myself, if there was ever a topic for us to get unfilteringly real about, it is boundaries. Boundaries, or the lack of understanding about our own boundaries, is truly at the heart of much of the conflict that we get into, especially with our friends. But do not feel ashamed about this. If you live in America especially, and or you're a woman, we were not raised to have boundaries. And in fact, we were raised to believe that to have boundaries with people is rude or impolite or unkind. And then in the context of the workplace, we were taught that to have boundaries means that you don't want to be successful, you're not a team player, you're lazy, or you lack ambition. All of this is wrong. Please repeat after me. It is healthy to have boundaries. It is not rude or unkind to have boundaries. Having boundaries does not limit what you are capable of. They are not meant to hold you back. A lot of us were raised to believe that having boundaries is meant to push people away, but in reality, boundaries help us to call people in. The key being the right people. Boundaries are not meant to subtract, they are meant to add. So, to start us off, y'all know how I do. Let's examine some dictionary definitions. So, Merriam-Webster defines boundary as something that indicates or fixes a limit, and that was the main definition. And I thought it was cute. They had like a kid definition. So the kid definition was something that points out or shows a limit or end. And then there was a legal definition, which was a theoretical line that marks the limit of an area of land. Cambridge Dictionary says a real or imagined line that marks the edge or limit of something, the limit of what someone considers to be acceptable behavior, or the edge or limit of something. And then lastly, dictionary.com says a line or a limit where one thing ends and another begins, and then a limit that separates acceptable behavior from unacceptable behavior. Okay, so I know some of y'all are about to say, but Daysha, I thought you said boundaries aren't limiting, and limit is literally in the definition. First of all, love the astuteness. I hear you. Yes, a boundary marks the limit or perimeter of our feelings and our values, but that does not mean that having and honoring our boundaries is meant to limit our ability to connect. They actually make it a lot easier for us to connect, but again, with the right people. And when I say the right people, I mean, and this is where you have to be really crystal clear and honest about the type of life you are trying to have. So when I was in my early 20s, I wanted an Instagram life. And what I mean by that is that I wanted a life and friends and experiences that photographed well, that gave me good optics, that made me feel cool. But the problem I learned is that with that lifestyle, it was not substantive. It did not feed my spirit. And it was such a crazy experience to be surrounded by a bunch of people that were supposed to be my quote unquote friends and still feel so alone and fake and used and hurt and just have all the feelings. But I had dope pictures though. And, you know, towards my 20s, my mid-20s, I had this reckoning with myself where I was like, it's not enough. Dope pictures are not enough. And it's so funny to me to look back at photos where I look really bomb and I look really happy, but I was actually so miserable on the inside. So I say that you have to get real because some of y'all hear the lifestyle I describe and you still salivate at that. Even after hearing how horrible it felt, I know there are some of y'all out there who are actually like, but you got bomb pictures though. And like people think you're cool. So excuse my rude ass computer. But you know, people think you're cool, so who cares? And if that's you, I pass no judgment and I truly mean it. But if that's you, then yeah, setting boundaries is not going to help you get what you want. If you care more about looking cool than feeling solid on the inside, then yes, setting boundaries will feel like you are pushing people out. And listen, while I have opinions on that, I'm ultimately not here to judge you because I know what I value and that's all that matters for me. I don't need you to value what I value for it to have meaning for me. My goal is just to help you be unapologetically clear about what you want. So again, if you care more about your appearances, then yes, setting boundaries with people will feel limiting to you. But if you are someone who cares more about having people in your life who rejuvenate you and help you show up more authentically as yourself in the world, then setting boundaries will be more expansive for you than you think. Within the Set Boundaries workbook by Nidra Glover Tawwab, she writes, "It's daring to live a boundaried life. It is brave to run the risk of others becoming upset with you. It takes courage to use your voice. Even through fear, you can set boundaries. Even through guilt, you can set boundaries." So, as I've mentioned before, we are in a loneliness epidemic. People around the world, but especially here in the US, do not feel connected to one another, even though we have more access to people than we've ever had before in human history with the internet and social media. Why are we so lonely is a question I've posed before on this podcast, and this excerpt from Tawwab's book is a great starting place for understanding why. I know this may seem like a weird thing to say given that tensions in the US have been running really high since 2016, but I believe that we're getting lonelier because we are not honoring our inner voice. We are too scared of people potentially being mad at us for saying clearly what we want and need. So I personally think we need to be less afraid of pissing people off and more afraid of dying from loneliness, which, as we've talked about in the last episode, can, for real, shorten your lifespan. And know that when I say this, I'm not advocating for you to just want to get in fights with people all day, right? Like, absolutely not. But I always think about this saying, it's like either you can have conflict within yourself or with somebody else. But either way, when you are not living by your wants and needs, and when you are not being true to yourself, conflict is going to happen. It's whether or not that conflict is just going to be with yourself or it's going to be with whomever is not meeting your wants and needs. So when I think about it in that way, I'm like, oh, okay, bet. Like, like we can't swallow what we need to feel whole, even though we may try. It may seem like the healthier thing to do to swallow how we feel to not create conflict. But I personally feel like as long as you are being true to yourself and you are not trying to incite conflict, you are just trying to communicate how you feel, like you can't control how the other person feels. So I always operate like they might get mad by you living your truth and you honoring what's in your heart. Truly. Like I think that I'm more so advocating to be less conflict averse rather than being like, oh yeah, I'm just gonna fight everybody. Like I just think that we have to say how we feel. And if we get into conflict, it's like, okay, like let's figure this out. I also don't think conflict has to be the dirty, angry, difficult word that it is made out to be. I think, conflict is just somebody's not getting what they feel like they need. And so it's the beginning of a negotiation. And I just don't think all conflicts have to be this horrible blow up thing. And so whatever false comfort you get from being around people who aren't meeting your wants and needs, it will not shield you from the physical and mental health toll that loneliness can take on you. As I talked about in episode 5, there's a huge difference between loneliness and being alone. And being surrounded by people who are not meeting your needs because you won't be honest about what you want will make you feel way more lonely than being alone ever will. I promise you that. I cannot promise much, but I can promise you that. We cannot escape what we need to feel whole. So instead of trying to do that, let's learn how to get more comfortable with identifying what we need. What are the limits of what we can handle when it comes to our time, our emotions, our physical space? I think a great way to set up our conversation about boundaries is, for example, I own a home. And when you purchase a home, you are also purchasing land that the home sits on. And when you live in a neighborhood especially, you're going to have clear property lines, which is the perimeter of the land that you control, that you own. And so I live by a golf course, and at night they run their sprinklers, which will occasionally spray water on my side of the property. When we initially set up our patio furniture, it was right by the fence. And so if we were sitting out there at night, we would get drenched by these sprinklers. So I called the golf place. I'm like, what are they called again? I don't know. So I called the golf place and I asked them to do something about it. And they tried to turn the sprinklers as best as they could. But because we live in a windy area, they said there's really not much they can do about it. Now, a lot of the times when it comes to setting boundaries, the reason why it's so hard for us to do it is because we're afraid of two potential outcomes. Either the person is going to be mad at us, or the person is not going to live up to our expectations. We're afraid that they're going to fail us and then what that failure means about how they feel about us. So at the heart of both of these outcomes is the fear of rejection, of asking but not receiving. So then we reason with ourselves that it's better not to ask for what we need, because if we don't ask, then we can't get rejected, and then we won't feel pain. But real talk, we all know that we still feel pain when we do it this way. We feel the pain of constant discomfort because people are either not meeting our needs or are violating our values, and then we're fuming on the inside. So real talk, consider this question: what makes more sense to you? Fuming on the inside and then lashing out at people, or voicing what we need and facing whatever outcome follows? Because you will have a war with them or a war within yourself. Which sounds more fun to you? That was the saying, y'all. Oh my God. See, I just need to trust that I already wrote this shit down. But yes, you will either have a war with them or a war within yourself. So really consider which one sounds more fun to you. Because the other hard part about boundaries, and we'll talk more in depth about this aspect on the third episode or third segment installment, is that we can't force people to follow our boundaries. We can only make our wants and needs known and then make choices based on how others respond. And that's tough because some people are not going to be able to follow your boundaries. So in my golf course example, some people are going to try and do what they can, and it might not be enough for you. But the power in this is that you have choices. You are not powerless. I also think what's challenging about living in American society is that we have been taught that everything is zero sum. There are winners and there are losers. And if you compromise or negotiate, you're a loser. You're not strong enough. And these are like the biggest fucking lies that have ever been told. This is the thinking that is making us all lonely, because there is actually power in creating your own outcomes. Like for me, I just moved my patio furniture, and some people might take that as me compromising and being weak and not standing my ground. Some people might have spent all of this time and energy fighting the golf course people. Some people might have just kept their furniture there anyway and been pissy about the fact that they have to keep getting wet and going on and on about how the golf course sucks. But for me, I said, well, this is my boundary. And over the fence is their boundary, so they can do what they want with their side, just like I can do what I want with my side. I made a request. It was not met in a way that I found to be helpful to me. So I had to say to myself, what do I have control over? I have control over my land and where I put my stuff on my land. So since they cannot meet my needs, I'm going to find a way to meet my own. And I did. And I'm happy because I don't get wet when I sit on my patio furniture now. And sure, it would have been great, amazing to keep my patio furniture where it was, but just because they are unwilling to meet my needs does not mean that I have to suffer. And I should say unwilling or unable, because some people very much, it's just they don't want to do it. But some people, it might be that they're not able to do it. And I think there are different approaches that you take depending on which one you're dealing with. But I find it so fascinating that in American culture, we will let ourselves suffer in the name of pride instead of doing what will make us feel happy or feel better. I actually kind of wrote a play about this. It's called 1920 Vision, and I'm so sad. So a theater company had approached me and they were like, we want to do this play. And I was so excited. And I was about to be like, if you're going to be in, I think it was like Missouri or whatever, go check it out. But I'm guessing they basically reached out to me. Someone else reached out to me who was on, I think they became the new artistic director. And they were like, sorry, actually, I don't think we have the resources to do your play, which I find to be funny because the play actually is, I think that it really comes to life with more bare bones staging, like less props. It really is a play that's about the words and the connection between the actors. But, anyway, I'm not mad or petty about it or anything. But the play is called 1920 Vision, and if you have a new Play Exchange account, you are welcome to read it. And I'd still love to hear your thoughts, and I really mean that. But so 1920 Vision is, I don't want to say it's because it's not autobiographical. It is not autobiographical. If you read it, there are elements of my experience with a family member who attacked me that will feel familiar. You know, you'll feel some things, but it is not, I would not call it autobiographical, but it does have elements of truth from my life and what I've experienced. And so on past episodes, for anyone who's new here, I have mentioned that I was attacked by a family member when I was 19. And because they violated my physical boundaries and I didn't feel like my family did enough in the aftermath to make me feel safe or like those boundaries would be respected in the future, I went back to college and really struggled with whether or not to come home that winter. And then on top of that, in perfect but horrible timing, I lived in a suite with this girl who was an absolute nightmare. She had no respect for anyone and their needs, and there were 4 of us in this suite. So it was me, my really good friend, who I also might add was an RA, and then this girl who was a freshman. And I felt so bad for this freshman girl because technically, so we each had like a center bathroom that we shared, and then like the 2 of us were on one side and 2 were on the other. And I just felt so bad for that freshman girl that had to live with her, especially because, you know, she's a freshman, and so it's hard to, you know, want to talk about boundaries, want to talk about being able to voice your feelings and opinions. And homegirl was getting railroaded, and there is nothing I hate more than watching somebody get railroaded. It's like, it is my I don't know what you call it. COVID has taken like everything away from me. But it pisses me. It's my trigger. It is my trigger. So the 3 of us were constantly lobbying the administration to move this girl because she was disturbing the peace. And I still to this day couldn't tell you why they were dragging their feet about it. But they were. Actually, now that I'm thinking about it, I think homegirl came from money. She was an international student, I believe from India. And yes, because we used to call her like, she was like a little princess, because like she would just want people to do like manual labor for her. Like I just remember we were like, she has to come from somewhere where they have servants, because the way that she would just be wanting people to do shit for her, like she would like go shopping and like get water bottles, and like I think she would want the girl to like carry the water bottles for her. It was a lot. That's just a fraction of some of the shit that was going on. But yeah, so I think that's why they were dragging their feet. It's because homegirl came from money. And so for me, it was just so toxic to come home and feel like I couldn't have peace because of her. And I told my mom about how I was thinking about moving out. And, you know, again, love my mom, but she's American too. And she was like, no, don't do that, because then that girl, she'll win. And it was so hard for me in that moment, especially as a Leo, because let me tell you, it's our season right now, okay? And like, pride is our love language, all right? I know a thing or two about being a prideful bitch. And so I wanted to win. I really did. I wanted to win so fucking badly. I wanted to laugh in that hoe's face as she moved out, holding a bowl of popcorn and just being all giddy and shit. Like, trust me, a bitch knows something about pride. But at the same time, it was like, at what cost? Because I'm miserable. I don't feel safe. And after having such a traumatic experience at home that summer, I just knew that I didn't know how to voice it at the time, but I do believe that I knew that I needed peace more than I needed to be right in that moment. Now, funny enough, they ended up moving the girl on the literal like last week before we all went home for the holidays. And so I technically won, but winning in that moment, it felt awful. I did not feel good about winning in that moment. So I say all that to say that when it comes to boundaries and honestly just dealing with people in general, I always like to ask myself this question that I got from this book called The Gift of Fear by Gavin DeBecker. And I will say I love this book so much. It's an amazing book about the power of intuition. But I also offer a trigger warning about it because it details an awful rape that happens at the top of the book. But in the book, DeBecker offers this sort of philosophical guidepost question, which is, do I want justice or do I want peace? Because you can't have both. And it's always been difficult for me to wrestle with this idea because I truly want to believe that both are possible. But I will say in my own personal experience that I think this question has really resonated with me. And as much as I don't want to admit it, I can't think of a situation where I've been able to have both. Unless you think about it as like, I think Oprah has this saying where where it's like, you can have it all, you just can't have it all at once kind of situation. And so I think, you know, it's not that it could never happen, this ability to have both, but just that like it's extremely rare to have it kind of all at once. It makes me think of this line that somebody told me, and I can't remember who said it. They told me recently, my bad, but they said, you know, it might have been my therapist now that I'm thinking about it, but she was basically like, do you want to be in a relationship or do you want to be right? And I was like, oh my God. This is too real to handle right now, but facts, you know? But ultimately, at the end of the day, I believe at the heart of these questions is a reminder that we are in charge of the experience that we have with the world. We are the ones who control the relationships we have with others. Tawwab describes boundaries as not only the perimeters that we establish with ourselves and others, but also holding yourself accountable for creating your life. And so when we are in conflict, we have to be more cognizant of what we actually need. What do we want? What is the outcome that will allow us to feel whole at the end of it all? And it's actually crazy to me how easy it can be to lose sight of that. And there's another great book, Crucial Conversations, that has really helped me with keeping things in perspective when I'm in conflict. I highly recommend it. This book, like it's hard because I read so many good books. I love reading, but like if you are somebody that really struggles with being in conflict, I highly, highly recommend Crucial Conversations. I think it'll be very helpful. And I should also say that whatever choice you make, it's also important to keep in mind that 1, you're not locked in, and 2, there's no right or wrong choice. There should be no judgment for whatever you choose because it's about what you need and your needs are valid. I'd also say that you don't need to explain your needs either, or people don't have to get it. The important thing is that you know that you need it and you articulate it clearly. And I'm not even gonna front like this is easy. Like this is actually something that my boyfriend and I have been working on in couples therapy, is just learning how to hear each other without trying to understand it. Oh my God. Becky is blowing me up right now. I'm dead. So it's Becky texting me about, because my birthday is in a few days. She's just texting me about how I'm going to be 32 and how I'm just a little baby. I am in our friend group, like the fetus, they like to call me. So, oh my God. She's like, for some reason, 30 and 34 don't feel as big as 32 and 36. And then she's like, I could be your mother. I don't know in what world. I mean, maybe if she was like 5 and she had me, but like, it's so cute. Okay. I'm going to put my phone on Do Not Disturb now, and then I'll get back to it. Okay, so yes, we were talking about articulating your needs and how it's important for you to just kind of say what you need and articulate it clearly and not necessarily worrying about the other person getting it. And yeah, so my boyfriend and I are in couples therapy, and we do this exercise where we kind of just like reflect and say what we need to say, but the person, they don't get to respond, or they have to respond in a particular way. And so, but the main goal is that they are listening and they are taking notes, and they're not, and this is what he and I both struggled with, is that like, we're not taking notes to react. We are taking notes to listen and to hear. And so part of that means that like, you can't be trying to understand what the person is saying as you are listening. You have to just listen. And it's a struggle. It is not easy, but it's something that, it's honestly an exercise that I think everybody needs more practice in. It's just the ability to just hear it, not react, not respond, not create comments or try to understand it. Just hear what the person is saying and sit with it. So it doesn't come naturally to people, but again, this is about doing what you need to do. And so you should not feel like your needs need to make sense. You just need to be able to articulate them clearly and know that it's what you need. So going back to my situation in college, there was nothing wrong with either option, to stay and fight or to move. Both options had their positives and negatives, and I was well within my right to pursue either. It was really about which one was going to make me feel content But I get that what can be challenging in these situations is all of the outside chatter and judgment and emotions that people can put on us, like my mom. And again, I know my mom was trying to support me as best as she could in that moment. But it's different when someone's not living through what you are living through. Like, of course, my mom wanted me to win, right? But if I were to go back in time, I would have argued that moving is also a form of winning because it would have allowed me to have peace in my living situation. And that is ultimately what I needed more in that moment than fighting with this girl. Because even though I technically won, I don't look back on that situation and feel like I won because of the emotional toll that it took on me. So when it comes to identifying our own boundaries, it's important to remember that we were born knowing how to express our needs. When you needed a diaper change as a baby, you cried. When you were hungry, you had absolutely no shame at diving at your mom's nipple in public, right? Like, literally just saw a TikTok the other day of this baby that was like, Mom, like, I'm coming for that titty. Like, and she's like, I think she was at like a christening or something, or she was standing up in front of a room of people with her baby just like diving at her nipple. So we had no shame about going after what we wanted. And then once we learned words like yes and no, we also had no shame about saying, yes, I want ice cream, and no, I don't want fucking carrots, and no, I'm not taking a nap. So expressing what we need is innate. It is in our human nature. We were literally born to do it. And so the shame that you feel about expressing them so clearly now is because you were taught along the way that there was something wrong or bad to be so clear about what you want. Now, again, just to reiterate, setting boundaries is not telling people what to do. You cannot make anyone do anything. Setting boundaries is just being clear about what we need or expect from others and ourselves. Because even though all we wanted to do was eat ice cream at 5 years old, and we were clear about expressing that need, it does not mean that we actually got to do that. We expressed a desire, and our parents either said, I can or I can't meet that need. And I actually wish that's how we handled stuff like that, instead of saying things like, how dare you want ice cream over carrots? Eating ice cream is full of calories that will make you fat and blah, blah, blah. Like, I wish we were more straightforward about just saying either I can or I can't meet your need, instead of wrapping our responses in so much shame and judgment for the person on the receiving end. Because that's why it then becomes so hard to be honest about what we want. Like, one of the things I love that my mom did growing up, and she didn't even intentionally do it, but I love that she never made us feel shame for being lower income. She never shamed me for desiring more than what we could afford. She was real though. And what I mean by that is that she would straight up tell me sometimes that it was not something that she had the money to buy, but she was never like, how dare you want nice things, or whatever other shameful stuff that people say. And by being straightforward with me, for me, it was like, okay, so you don't have the money for it, but if I go out and make the money for it, then I can have it. So it was almost like a form of motivation, whereas when we shame people for what they want, we can actually really screw them up. Okay, so as far as figuring out what your boundaries are, within the Set Boundaries workbook, Tawwab identifies 6 types of boundaries that we can set with others. So there's personal, sexual, emotional, intellectual, material, and time. Physical is exactly what you are thinking. It is your personal space and physical contact, the perimeter around your body. You get to decide how close you want people to be to your body and how they are allowed to engage with your body. So, if you're a hugger, or you're like, fuck hugs, kisses on the cheek are cool, or nah. If you've ever watched Seinfeld, you know that Elaine can get really physical when she's shocked. She shoves people. And while it's funny to watch, I could definitely imagine a lot of people being pissed at her in real life. Like, if someone actually was as physical as she was, I would definitely say she is violating someone's physical boundary. Now, we'll talk more about how to set a boundary with someone like Elaine in the next episode. But for now, as I go through these different types of boundaries, I would love for you to think about what are boundaries that you would love to set in these different areas. Like people being sick without masks in public is a huge physical boundary for me since COVID. Oh my God. Actually, you know what? Because I violated my own boundary with this. So let this be a lesson to you all, because it was definitely a lesson for me, because I do not like to fuck with people that sound like they're sick and they have no mask on. And I was at Barnes and Noble's recently with my boyfriend, and there were people in the area coughing. But again, I thought that I was some new human. I was some new special breed evolved human. So I was like, I'm a little disgusted, but at the same time, like, I'm not gonna catch COVID. I haven't caught COVID in like the last 4 years. COVID's not gonna get me. So yes, let this be a reminder to follow your boundaries. Lord, I still can't believe I caught it. Anyway, and you know, we all know how political masks got. So for me, I will talk to people close to me if I sense they are sick and ask them to put a mask on, especially if we're in close quarters. But again, I can't make them do anything. So if they can't meet that request, I will then let them know that I will either leave, or if they're at my house, I'm going to ask them to leave or to be outside. And again, the big thing I want to stress here is that setting boundaries is all about bringing you peace. It's not about ultimatums, because ultimatums lead to heartbreak and so much unnecessary hurt. If someone can't meet my need, I don't threaten to not hang out with them, because that's manipulative. That's me saying, if you don't do what I want, I refuse to engage with you. And that is not what I'm saying to do. I also try, and the key word is try here, I try not to interpret it as more than what it is. I try not to make it mean that they don't respect me or they don't love me enough. But if someone can't meet my need, that doesn't then just invalidate my need, right? All of your needs are valid. And it's challenging because if someone either can't or won't meet our need, it's crazy how we kind of question whether or not our need was valid in the first place and get in our heads and then just let people walk all over us. So again, all your needs are valid. You just need to, 1, know what they are, 2, state them clearly, and 3, honor and protect them through action. Because when you can do that, then there's really no resentment on your part. The other person might feel a type of way, but that's for them to deal with and figure out. You're only responsible for your feelings and understanding yourself. So if my friend doesn't want to put on a mask, that doesn't have to mean that she doesn't love me or care about my health. Could you argue that it's selfish? Hell yeah. But it doesn't necessarily mean that she doesn't love me. Just like me asking her to leave my house doesn't mean that I don't care about her. It just means that I'm honoring my physical boundary to not be around sick people without masks. She has her needs, but I also have mine. And with care and effort, both can coexist and be respected. All right, so the next boundary is sexual boundaries. So how far do you want to take things sexually with your partner or partners? What do you enjoy? What makes you uncomfortable? A resource that I discovered in college and found to be really helpful in figuring out my own sexual boundaries was the yes, no, maybe list. I can link one in the show notes, but if you also Google it, there are tons floating around. But it's basically a giant list of sexual acts that you can go through with a partner or whomever you're being sexual with and discuss what excites you, what makes you nervous, or what is just a flat out no. And again, people evolve. So just because it's a no right now doesn't mean that it has to be a no forever. But it's important that if it's a no for you right now, especially women in heterosexual relationships, I want you to know that you should be 1,000% confident to admit that to your partner. There is just so much pressure for women to feel like they have to please their partner and be down for anything sexually. But as your big sister auntie queen, I just really want to put it out there that you do not have to do anything that you don't want to do, especially in a sexual context. I literally had a guy walk out in the middle of a hookup because I wouldn't give him head. And I was like, sorry, bro, but I don't suck random dick. And that's no shade to people who love sucking random dick, okay? Like, you do you. I love that for you. But that's my boundary. For me, giving head is more intimate. And so it's something I like to do with people that I'm in long-term relationships with. But again, I totally respect the case for the opposite, which is people being like having penetrative sex is more intimate. And so they give head, but they don't do penetration. Again, it's all valid. But what's important is that you know what that line is for you. Okay, next are emotional boundaries. And emotional boundaries are essentially being intentional about what feelings or personal information you choose to share with people and when you decide to do that. When starting off her chapter on explaining what boundaries are, Tawwab had this great example of how Chadwick Boseman, the star of the Black Panther franchise, decided to keep his cancer diagnosis to himself, and there were a lot of people who were shocked and felt that they were owed this knowledge before he died, which is like, what? Like, get out of here. We were not owed that information. Now, I will say things get tricky with this boundary when it comes to being someone who's in the public, like influencers, celebrities, politicians, and the like, but still, and I'm really aiming this towards influencers because while vulnerability is beautiful, I really struggle with coming across videos where people are raw in their trauma. Like, to me, those kinds of videos are not vulnerable as much as they are emotionally overwhelming. And I'm not saying that we can't talk about our trauma or what we've been through. I just don't think that we should be running to social media first because we think that it will make us look more authentic. Like, it's taken me years to talk about some of the stuff that I share on the podcast now. And even though I just got let go from my job, like, best believe that I'm only sharing that because I feel comfortable. And even then, I didn't run to social media to process that. I called my loved ones and I processed. So I just offer that up to say that your life is your own and you don't owe anyone the raw version of you. And I get that vulnerability is like super tricky because, again, I think that when done well, people being vulnerable on social media can actually be such a beautiful and, life affirming thing that we're all kind of navigating this difficult world called life. Yeah, and it's making me think that I would love to do an episode in the future on vulnerability because even I'm, through doing this research, learning so much more about what it means to be vulnerable and, kind of the pitfalls that we fall into when trying to do that. So definitely let me know if you would be interested in a future episode on diving deeper into vulnerability. But again, this is all to say that you can share what you want and as much as you want on your own timeline. Like, one of my besties went through a horrible living situation with her partner, and she didn't tell me about the depths of how bad it became until months later. And now in retrospect, I hate that I made it about me because when she told me, I was like, well, why didn't you tell me sooner? And it's hard because I know that response came from a place of me wanting her to know that I have her back and I would hop on a plane to whoop a bitch's ass in like a hot second. But I also respect that like she needed time to process and deal on her own. And she was totally within her right to have that boundary. Just because we're best friends does not mean that she has to tell me everything exactly when I want to hear it. All I can do is let her know that she's loved and I'm here, and then trust that she'll seek me out when she's ready. Okay, next is intellectual boundaries, and these are basically your thoughts, ideas, and opinions. So everyone is free to have and express their opinions, right? And I know with how hot the political climate is right now, we really wish that weren't the case, but we do all have that right. But who we express them with and how we express them are things that we can actually set boundaries around. And again, with this political climate, I highly recommend that. Like at Thanksgiving in America, that has notably been a time for a lot of families to say no politics at the dinner table. That's an intellectual boundary. It's a great one. You are welcome to have your beliefs, but over the course of this hour-long or however long dinner, we don't want to hear them. And if you start talking about them, I'm going to ask you to leave or I'm going to leave. So that is a great way of setting intellectual boundaries with people that, I think particularly with family, I think that's where intellectual boundaries probably need to be set because, with people out in the world, we can just say, well, fuck you, I'm going to leave or, you can kind of disengage in an easier way. So I would say in particular, I think that with family, it's important to have strong intellectual boundaries. And again, it doesn't mean, and listen, as I say this, I'm like, I get why it's difficult. I understand. I totally understand intellectually why this is challenging. I have family members that believe in real problematic shit. And so it is challenging because I'm like, you're my family member and I want to tell you to fuck off, but you're also my family member. So I can't really do that. Although I will say for real, some of them are this close to getting it. It's hard because I was raised in a house to respect my elders, but some of them are real close to getting that fuck off. But anyway, again, it's one of those things where you have to have strong intellectual boundaries. And so when particular family members just want to start talking they shit, talking out both sides of their neck, that's when I decide to leave. Because I'm like, I'm not doing this. And again, I think that especially in this climate, it's been really hard for people to be like, well, how can I love someone that can believe things that are so toxic? And I get you. I 1,000% get you, but I also feel like I'm also a strong believer of that, we can't control people. We can only meet people where they are. And so, I think it's just important to say that, look, if you want to believe that, that's on you. I can't force you to believe anything different, but I do find your beliefs maybe toxic to my identity or my being. And so because of that, I can only hang out with you in these situations, circumstances, and if you start talking about these beliefs that are toxic to my identity or my existence, then I'm gonna leave. And again, it's not that I don't want to hang out with you and it's not that I don't love you, but you're saying things that are harmful to my existence or my being. So I have respect for myself and I'm gonna go. So intellectual boundaries, I think, can be a struggle, but I also think, especially just in the climate, in the world that we are in right now, they are so important to set because no one has the right to come talk to you crazy or to belittle or deny your existence. No one has the right to do that. They have the right to have that opinion. They have the right to have that thought, but they don't have the right to make you sit through their thoughts and opinions. They don't have that. So it's really important to know what that line is for you and what you will and won't tolerate and, own that and articulate that clearly to the people around you. Okay, then we have material boundaries, which are how we decide to share or not share our stuff or resources with others. So if you loan something out to someone, the mutual understanding is that they are going to return it in the condition that they borrowed it. And so if they don't, and it comes back worse, that's a boundary violation. Funny story, my boyfriend got me this hand massager for Christmas, and he realized a few weeks ago that I still had not opened it and asked me if he could open it. And I said no. And y'all, the look on his face when I said no, but I was like, no, for me, it was my gift and I wanted to be the first one to open it and use it. And I didn't want to use it in that moment. And yeah, he was frustrated as hell, but that's not a me problem. And I understand why it would be frustrating. I empathize with that. But again, my responsibility is to be true to my feelings and what I want. And in that moment, I didn't want to open it. But what's even funnier is that one day my hand was hurting and I asked him for a hand massage and he said no. And he said to go use my hand massager, which was fair. I mean, all we can do is make requests, intake that information, and act accordingly. So I did finally open it. And, it's cool. I love the physical touch of getting a hand massage. But anyway, lastly, we have time boundaries, which are how we manage our time and how we allow others to use our time. This includes doing favors, how late we stay after hours for work and our free time. Now, big sister Auntie Queen Maxine Waters is my favorite person to think of when it comes to time boundaries, because she is not afraid to reclaim her time when these fools in Congress try to play in her face, okay? So similarly, your time and how you choose to spend it is all up to you. And giving up your time to do things that you don't want to do can be considered a violation of your time boundaries. So I created this mantra for myself in my mid-20s when I was just getting invited to all this influencer stuff. And, you know, it was just really overwhelming because you're like, oh, I want to be a good quote unquote friend and show up for people. And so eventually I just said to myself, like, if I got a fake smile, I'm not going. And I gotta say, like, it's really served me well since I've adopted it. But overall, I would say that setting time boundaries is just, it is so valuable. It is so important. Your time, like, you don't get time back. The time that you have is the time that you have. And so do not let people fuck around with your time. You know, if you just want to sit around and do nothing, then you just want to sit around and do nothing. But, like, don't feel like you owe people your time. You get to decide exactly how you want to use your time. And also, like, don't be afraid to reclaim it. You know, like, it's one thing if you think that you're saying yes to something, to spend your time doing it because you thought it would be fun, but if it's not fun anymore, reclaim your time. Take it back. It is yours. You only get so much of it. And I think time boundaries are the thing that I feel like I struggled with so much in my past. So I'm a very big advocate of making sure that you respect your time and how you want to spend it. All right, so again, I would think about each category and write down boundaries that you want to enact. You can do all 6, but if that feels like a lot to start with, I'd recommend choosing 3 that you feel like you really struggle with the most and start there. Like, I know for me, again, my biggest issue has been time boundaries. I'm always giving people access to my time in a way that does not serve me, like these fucking door-to-door salesmen and saleswomen who be trying to sell me shit that I can't afford or I don't need. And I know that I need to get better about saying no to them and being firm about that. Keep saying it out loud, because let me tell you, there's this guy that is trying to sell me solar panels right now that will not leave me alone. So that is my item, my thing that I'm working on. I will also say at work too, like, oh my God, my BuzzFeed days, I just gave them copious amounts of my time in a way that, like, ultimately did nothing for me because I was burnt out and they didn't give a shit. They still wanted more from me. So I am also a fierce advocate of protecting your time at work, knowing that they pay you for a certain amount of time in your day. And if they want more of that, they need to pay for that. I'm sick of this, you know, well, if you really want to be ambitious, like, I just think that, like, you should be willing to give extra time. Fuck that. Groceries are too expensive for that shit, okay? If they want more of you, they need to pay for that. So I'm gonna get off my little soapbox, but just as a recap of what we talked about today, boundaries are not rude or impolite to set, nor are they meant to push people out of our lives or to punish them. Boundaries are parameters based on our needs and comfort levels around our personal, sexual, emotional, intellectual, material, and time. I see them as guidelines that amusement parks put outside of their rides that say that you have to be this tall to ride this ride, or this ride is not great for pregnant women. These guidelines are not meant to keep people away. They are meant to keep people safe. There's a reason why it's not safe for certain people to get on a ride, just like it's unhealthy for you to subject yourself to people and situations that make you miserable. And just like with these rides, people can totally not follow these guidelines, right? But then there's a good chance they will deal with the consequences of those actions, whether it's falling out of the ride or something happens to their baby. But at that point, we don't blame the ride, right? Because the guidelines were there and they were clear. That's for those people to deal with, not us. All right, y'all. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Again, my apologies for all of the delays and all of the craziness. Now that I'm still looking for jobs, but this podcast means so much to me. It truly is I've never felt more passionate and more excited to create content in like a really long time. And so I know that I need to get my act together about the Patreon, and that's something that I will be doing over the course of the coming weeks. And so if you would love to support what I'm doing to help it become something that I can do full time, I would love to have your support on the Patreon. And again, there will be so many amazing bonus goodies that will live for you there too. There are just so many things that I want to do. So with the little bit of time that I will have before I eventually need to find a new job, I'm definitely putting all of my heart, my soul, and my energy into this podcast. So would love your support, would love to hear any revelations or things that are coming up for you so you can join our Patreon. But we also have a free Facebook group where you can join and commune with other people listening to the podcast as well as myself. So definitely make sure that you check out the show notes for all of those links. I love and adore y'all so much, and I just can't wait to keep making discoveries with you guys, to keep doing this work. It is truly the greatest. Like, my birthday is in a couple days, and like, fingers crossed, I want to get this episode out as like a birthday present to myself because I love doing this work so much. So it's gonna happen, and I love y'all. But that's it for now. Make sure you keep your eyes peeled for the next 2 episodes for boundaries. So the next one will be how do we communicate our boundaries effectively? And that will be with the amazing Calix Vubui. I'm so excited for y'all to meet her. And then the next one after that in our 3-part series will be about how do we deal with those boundary crossers and those people who either can't or won't meet our boundaries. So amazing conversations. You don't want to miss them, so definitely make sure that you keep your ears peeled for those upcoming episodes, as well as, again, as I aim to make this the biggest, baddest, bestest podcast ever, please share these episodes with your friends, share these episodes with people who you think might need them. Let's get this podcast out into the world so that I can make this my full-time thing and we can just be doing the work. Like, I learn just as much as I hope you guys do as well. So, all right, besties, I will catch you next time. Your girl is out. Love you. And happy birthday, Leos. Enjoy our season, but not just Leos. Leo season, I think, is just a fabulous time for everyone. Leos are all about basking in your light, doing what makes your soul shine. So everybody can also enjoy the beauty of Leo season. So take care. Love you. And your girl is out. Are you loving Real Talk Friend Therapy? Of course you are. So don't forget to show us some love with a 5-star review wherever you are listening, and to join our Patreon to unlock bonus recordings, videos, private chats, and more.